Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission for Thursday, August 3rd, 2017, and we are in Santa Barbara with one member up in Santa Maria. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Savis?
Here.
Commissioner Geyer? Here. Commissioner Hartman? Commissioner Skanian? Commissioner Lavanino? Commissioner Morehouse?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
Commissioner Stark?
Here.
Commissioner Waterfield?
Here.
Commissioner Welt? And Commissioner Wolf?
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioners Hartman, Lavanino, and Welt are absent.
Thank you. And would you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Richardson?
Place your hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic stand one nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you. May I have approval of the minutes of June 1st?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Just for the record, let's see. Mr. Stark, of course, is a voting member today, and then that's it, right?
That's it.
And Ms. Waterfield is not a voting member, and neither is Ms.
Yeah. Waterfield is not a voting member.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who is the second on that motion?
Okay.
So we need a second.
No, Mr. Geyer seconded over there.
Good.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. One abstention. Jacqueline, you got that? Okay. Do we have any members of the audience who would like to speak to us on any items not on today's agenda?
Chair Savis and members of the Commission, we have one request to speak on general public comment, and that's Karen Jones.
Hello, everyone. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak. I would like to comment on the grand jury report from the 2016-17 grand jury. I don't know if you would call it an investigation. I don't know what the word is, but they received complaints about the West Santa Ynez annexation. Many people who lived in the SYCSD district and people who lived in West Santa Ynez, which was annexed, felt like they didn't receive proper notice and complained to the grand jury. I was unaware of the report until I was sent a copy of the report. So I had some comments to make about it, and I wanted to give you this. This is a notice that was printed after the grand jury released this report, and I agree with much of what was in the report. And like many people who live in the district in Santa Ynez, and I am here as somebody who lives in the district, even though this capitulated me into a race for the SYCSD, I'm here as a citizen who has been a stakeholder since 1983 in the district. My husband has owned property in the district since '74, and our family goes back as before any of us can remember. So we're very invested in this community, and there was just no information. It happened so quickly, and people were afraid that they were going to be forced onto the sewer system, the people that were being annexed, and the people in the existing district at that time were not notified at all. And I think as somebody in the district, I should be notified of district changes, not just the people who are going to be included in the annexation. So the conclusion of the grand jury report, and like I said, I agree with much of what was in the report. I think they missed some big things. They said they talked to members of the board, employees of LAFCO. I don't know who here was interviewed by the grand jury. I don't know what citizens complained, who they talked to. I do know they did not talk to me. I do know they did not talk to my son, whose protest was not accepted, and the protest vote failed by less than 1. Neither here nor there, because my big issue has to do with how notice is happening. And I wanted you to be aware of that since you were involved in this. The first notification by the district, the SYCSD district, after the grand jury report, which the grand jury report concluded, and when I was sent this report, staff from the CSD sent it and said, here's the grand jury report, I have to give it to you, even though they didn't find anything. Well, they found lots of things, and most of them were good news, so that's great. But in the conclusion, in the final paragraph, the grand jury determined that the Santa Ynez Community Service District and Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission followed statutory procedures regarding the annexed area of West Santa Ynez. What was needed was more public informational meetings, better communication with the public, and better coordination between the two agencies.
Would you wrap it up, please? You've used your 3 minutes.
Excuse me?
Would you wrap it up? You've already used
Yes, we're on the 20, and that was my final deal. I handed you the notice. The
No,
next opportunity to give
your
notice
time-
was a little skinny column, so...
Your time is up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I had 17 left. I didn't know I went over. I
You only have 3
apologize.
minutes. That's
I think
okay.
you guys got the gist of my comment. Thank you very much for
Thank
letting
you.
me speak.
Okay, the consent calendar. Any commissioners wish to approve any items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Clerk, please read.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, business item number 1 is to consider making nominations to the 2017-2018 Cal LAFCO Board of Directors.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may notice there's several items from Cal LAFCO on your agenda today with the upcoming annual conference in October, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But one of the items that Cal LAFCO is seeking nominations is for the Board of Directors of the Cal LAFCO organization. And there are going to be two vacancies, one for a city representative, city member, and the other for a public member. So if your commission has anyone that fits that bill, city or public, that is interested and willing to serve on the Cal LAFCO Board of Directors, now would be the time to nominate those commissioners, and I can go through the necessary nomination paperwork and fill those out, but I'm asking if we have nominations for the Cal LAFCO Board of Directors. The election would be at the annual conference in October, which is going to be in San Diego. That concludes my comments.
Are there any commissioners who wish to submit the name or nominate somebody from the commission? I see none. Thank you. We'll receive and file and go to the next.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, business item number 2 is to consider making nominations for the 2017 Cal LAFCO Achievement Awards and provide direction to staff.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a request from Cal LAFCO for nominations for Cal LAFCO Achievement Awards, and there are several items that you could nominate your commission or staff or a legislator or anyone that you think is worthy and acceptable to receive a nomination. I had a couple of, when I was looking at the list of nominations, a couple of these jumped out at me, and those would be the most effective commission. I think your commission has done an excellent job the last year and a half with a very complex agenda items and complex proposals. An outstanding commissioner, and the list goes on. And so those would be a couple that I would suggest that you consider. And if you do decide to nominate your commission or a commissioner or anyone else, any other nomination on this list, then I would be happy to fill out the nomination forms and process them. So I'm asking that you consider at least a nomination or 2 or 3 at this point, and give me direction to fill out the necessary paperwork.
Thank you. Back to the commission. Any nominations that someone wants to consider for Mr. Hood? Mr. Stark.
I just want to make the suggestion. The nomination period closes at the end of September, right? So we could, if people wanted to think about this for a month, bring it back at the September meeting, or at least hold it open if anybody wanted to make any nominations rather than do it now.
Okay, with that, it is open for future consideration. At this point, we'll receive and file, go to the next.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at the, I'm sorry to interrupt. Nominations are due by the end of August.
The end of August.
September.
I'll withdraw my previous
That was a good idea. Okay, we'll receive and file and move to the next, please.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, business item number 3 is to consider the adoption of a position on Senate Bill 448 and provide direction to staff on the Little Hoover Commission.
Mr. Hood.
Again, Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 448 by Wiskowski had some issues with it, and I presented these to you the past couple of meetings, but it looks like the changes that have been requested by Cal LAFCO and the Special Districts Association now make the bill more acceptable to both organizations and will lead to governmental efficiencies. Cal LAFCO has changed its position, as has the California Special Districts Association, to now support the bill. And so we adopted an oppose unless amended position a couple of months ago, but I would recommend that you change that to a support position. And then I also gave you some information on the Little Hoover Commission, which has some similarities to the bill, to the SB 448, in that there are recommendations contained by the Little Hoover Commission that are going through the process. They are going to be meeting later in August to look at some LAFCO involvement, some funding for LAFCO to do MSRs, an opposition to overriding LAFCO deliberative process on local issues. And so these are some of the things I think that are very, very worthy of your support. And I know Cal LAFCO and CSDA is participating in the Little Hoover Commission. Pedro Nava is the chair of that commission. We've talked about that as well, past the assembly person from the area. So I will continue to monitor that, but I would recommend that you change your position on SB 448 to support at this time. And I will come back to you with more information on the Little Hoover Commission. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell what the Little Hoover Commission is doing, and they're not giving out a lot of public information. And so the report that I gave to you was not officially public until very recently, but I did include it in your packet. And it includes a lot of things that I think are very beneficial. Healthcare districts, there's some climate change information in there, and also transparency of governmental agencies, which I think they're doing a good job from the original intent and original direction that the Little Hoover Commission is going in. But the only action I'm asking for is SB 448 to support.
Okay, we'll take it back to the commission. Mr. Guyer.
Has our legislative committee come up with a recommendation?
We have not met on this particular issue. I think that, yeah, we haven't met. We met in April and came back in May after we had some issues that we wanted the commission to weigh in on. But again, some of these things change very rapidly. And from when I sent out the Cal LAFCO Legislative Committee agenda, which was in the beginning of June, it's really hard to keep up on things, hold meetings, which I will obviously try and do as much as possible and try and keep current. And you did give me some direction to act independently on items that are supported by Cal LAFCO would not adversely impact this commission. So that's a very good point.
Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, there's two items in the Little Hoover Commission that cause me concern, and maybe I just need more information to better understand it. But one has to do with augmenting existing LAFCO funding by allocating a certain percentage of local property taxes to fund LAFCOs. And the impact could be extensive, so that's one issue. The other one is the bullet down at the bottom that the legislature should adopt legislation to give LAFCO members fixed terms. And so my question then, because I know so those are two of my concerns. Mm-hmm. You are asking for support for 448, and I'm wondering, are in either of those items embedded in this bill?
No.
Okay.
You're not. I agree with your comments, especially on the property tax issue. That's something that gets thrown in by people that are not familiar with the limited resources that local agencies have from property tax since Prop 13 passed. And earmarking a portion of that property tax for LAFCO to do municipal service reviews, first of all, would probably never happen because, again, when we have annexations, it's a very complex situation where we transfer service responsibilities as well as property tax money. So I think that that is something I can point out to Cal LAFCO that we need to keep an eye on. The other, the special districts may want to weigh in on as far as terms that are for 4-year terms that are not, you cannot decide to take somebody off the LAFCO commission before that 4-year term is up. And occasionally it happens that that commissioners are removed by the appointing authority. And so I think that what the Little Hoover Commission is looking at fixed terms as kind of if someone, and I think it was a case, I think with a city representative where there was a decision made by a city representative that was not supported by the Council of Mayors, and they were removed from LAFCO. I think there was a specific instance where they were removed. And so they, had a problem with that. And especially the person that was removed had a problem with it because they voted against what the rest of the cities wanted to do. So this is, again, something kind of a shotgun approach to trying to eliminate a problem that may not be a problem most of the time.
I would agree. And hearing that historical perspective makes, I think, my concern even stronger because we don't make these decisions based on one incident that might have happened. I'm just concerned with that provision too. So I just wanted to make sure you know that. And I'm interested to hear my colleagues' comments then on 448.
Well, just to opine on that, the one piece on the where the council of mayors removed a mayor or removed their elected member. That is concerning because, although I'm a city rep, I don't represent just the cities. I represent the entire county. And we kind of get that confused. And I'm not here advocating for cities. I'm advocating for the entire county. So that is a great concern. Okay, any other comments?
I have a brief comment, if I might, Mr. Chair. Ask the executive director to confirm what I think this means as far as SB 448. Is it SB 448? There's a section in there, 56880, and it reads the article, I guess, referring to the dissolution of inactive special districts shall not apply to a special district formed by special legislation that is required by its enabling statute to get funding within a specified period of time or be dissolved. That would mean or would apply, I think, to the Isla Vista Community Services District. Is that right? Could you confirm that? It appears to be its plain meaning.
Yeah, I would think that would be the case. What was the section again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
56880, 56880.
It's almost the very last page
It's
of the
on,
document.
yeah, it's toward the end of Exhibit A.
Yeah, it looks like it has to be the IV CSD.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, staff is making a recommendation that we amend to support on 448. Is there a motion to do that? I'm sorry, what it 448. Is there a motion to change our position?
I'll move to change our position to support with the latest amendments.
Okay, is there a second to the? There's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It passed unanimously. Is that it, Mr. Hood, on that item?
That's it.
Or did? Okay, next one, please.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, business item number 4 is to receive and file a report on the results of the protest hearing on the formation of the Los Olivos Community Services District.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On June 21st, we held a protest hearing in Los Olivos on the protest votes that were filed, and it was determined following that protest hearing by the county elections office that there were 80 valid protests filed out of 488 protests, registered voters rather, 16.39%. Termination would require in excess of 50% of the registered voters to protest, and so this was that the protest votes were insufficient to terminate proceedings. So I'm reporting that to you. I had the authority as the executive officer to hold that protest hearing, but I wanted to let you know what the results were, and I sent out a notice to you as well as posted it on the website. We're in the process of scheduling the impartial analysis and the ballot argument for the September 7th LAFCO meeting. We have a need to spend time on this to make sure that it's correct and identifies the impartial position. And that is not going to hold things up. The impartial analysis is not due until the rebuttal arguments are due. And at that time, we ask the Board of Supervisors, it says direct, but we're asked nicely to call an election following the adoption of the ballot measure and the impartial analysis. So we will bring that back to you in September 7th. And the looks like the election will now be held. It will be a mail ballot election, but talking with county elections, it will be January election where the ballots would be mailed out. There's a nomination period for the anyone that wants to run for the Board of Directors, and then the election would also be on approval of a special tax and formation of the district and election of the directors of the district. So those would be the 3 items that would be talked about in September. And the special tax is a 2/3 vote that would be required, and it would be co-joined with the formation. So if the special tax doesn't pass, unlike some districts that we've been dealing with in the past, that if the tax measure doesn't pass, the district doesn't get formed. Isla Vista, there were 2 separate measures, and so even though the voters voted to form the district, they didn't pass the tax. But this would be a situation where LAFCO is involved from the very beginning, and that's one of our requirements, is we don't form districts that are not able to be funded. So it's more of an information item, although it's a business item, and basically it's receive and file at this point, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Mr. Stark.
May I ask a quick question? It's I think a hyper-technical question. Do you prepare the impartial analysis for both the formation part of this and the tax part of this? So, and that includes the financial information that's required to be included in any tax measure. Your analysis would include that. It's no separate deal by the county. Is that right?
Well, it's one issue though. Right, but this is one. Yeah, there's 2 questions. Yeah, we would prepare the impartial analysis for your commission's approval, and it would include the tax measure. I'm not really, the measure itself would be approval of the formation of the district and approval of a special tax. It would be one question. And so that would be in the measure, but there would be 2 separate items that, first of all, it would be the approval of the district, the tax measure, and then the voters.
My understanding is that we have a ministerial duty to request the Board of Supervisors to hold the election, given the nature of the vote. And our only real duty is to look at the impartial analysis that the
goes
ED.
on the ballot.
And I think, if I'm right, that the county elections handles the ballot labels and all that tag once we send it, when we're done with it, once we've requested the county to hold the election. Right. Thanks.
Mr. Dillon, did you have a comment?
No, Mr. Chair. It was resolved. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Guyer.
Was this application one of the $11,515 that was charged by elections for verifications?
I think that was the Santa Ynez issue. This one, because we did the mailing to registered voters, and then we did the protests, and they were much less, numerically than in Santa Ynez. We were charged by the assessor and the elections office, which I guess is part of the same office, although we were charged the $11,000 for that, which was the first time that we were ever charged for it. But we included now in our fee schedule reimbursement for LAFCO for any fees that are charged. And so in the future we will bill for those and receive reimbursement.
Okay, let's go to the public.
Chair Seves and members of the commission, we have one request to speak on this item, and that's Karen Jones.
Thank you again. I'll understand the clock is going down this time. The reason I wanted to speak on this issue today is I've spent my whole life within 70 miles of this area of Santa Ynez in particular. I got it. We visited the husband's family there, and cute little valley. And when I wanted to move to Santa Ynez to raise my family, my husband told me I couldn't live there because you just don't get the valley. I've lived in small towns. So I moved there, and yeah, there's a learning curve in living in the valley. And you people up here are familiar with the Santa Ynez Valley to varying degrees, but only Mayor Richardson lives there as far as I know. Maybe somebody else here does. And these are 5 distinct little communities. And when I moved there, I'm like, why does everybody have their own school district? It would be so much more affordable and efficient to have one school district. Well, nobody wants to give up their district. Every town has their own culture and personality. And that's really one of the things at stake here. And I followed this process. It was a year ago. I remember Doreen Farr speaking at LAFCO and talking about communicating what you're doing, all sides. And that's what works in government, and transparent government is the best form. And I've loved watching this process play out because, I mentioned earlier about the West Santa Ynez annexation, just the confusion, and that caused a lot of problems. Ms. Wolf, when you were asking your question, saying maybe I need more information, because it's really hard to really know what to think when you don't have all the information. So I've watched Los Olivos organize, have information, and these people involved on both sides have lobbied, have organized, and the 16% protest vote fell short by, 34%, where in the West Santa Ynez annexation vote, it was less than 1%, even though it was a different bar as far as meeting that bar. So now the people are going to get another opportunity to vote on whether they want it. And this has just been a wonderful process. I've learned a lot. My father was the chairman of the Kern County LAFCO 20-some years ago. He would be shocked if he were alive today. I hate this stuff. It's so boring. But once you learn, it gets interesting, and you see how it directly affects your life. So I appreciate you making information available, answering questions, because the more I learn, the more I understand, and the better able I am to have an opinion. And I strongly, strongly favor Los Olivos governing themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more speakers?
Chair Seves, member of the commission, I believe that is our only request to speak on this item.
Okay, Mr. Hood, anything else?
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, the items are receive and file. Move to the next.
Chair Seves and members of the commission, informational item number 1 is to receive and file a report on the Cal LAFCO Legislative Committee meeting that was held on June 23rd, 2017.
Mr. Hood, anything
Chairman,
else?
I'll be very brief on this since the agenda was about a month old, but I did go back and look at the bills that are included on the list. And the legislature is in recess now until the middle of April, middle of August. They come back on the 17th. So there are things that are happening in Sacramento. The omnibus bill that is including some things from LAFCO about LAFCO operations is now being amended to include a specific district in Vallejo, an irrigation district. So that would come back, but it looks like the AB 1725, the LAFCO sponsored omnibus bill will pass, but it won't be until the legislature reconvenes. The Lackey bill, which the commission is familiar with, which makes it easier for LAFCOs to seat special districts on the commission if they receive a request from the Special District Selection Committee asking for representation, and doesn't require a request from the majority of special districts. It can be from the Independent Special District Selection Committee, and again, LAFCO co-sponsored the bill. We talked about SB 448. The commission adopted a support position on that, and there was a bill that Santa Clarita Valley Water District formation that bypassed LAFCO, SB 634 by Wilk. And now that everybody's getting along, the LA LAFCO has withdrawn their opposed position and now supports the bill because it involves a deliberation by LAFCO on the reorganization. Again, the AB 1728 healthcare districts is now including more transparency as far as adopting a budget annually for healthcare districts. And in some counties, healthcare districts in Sonoma County, for instance, there's several healthcare districts that don't adopt a budget, don't have a website, and not operating the way that special districts should, even though they are a special district. So I would not I don't think, we talked about the Little Hoover Commission, so I'll just conclude my comments with that update, and we'll continue to watch the legislative process when the legislature reconvenes middle of this month.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? See none, receive and file. Go to the next, please.
Chair Seves and members of the commission, informational item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the 2017 LAFCO Annual Conference in San Diego that will be held October 25th through the 27th of this year.
Again, I'll be brief on this. It's an information item. The conference will be held in San Diego at the Bahia Hotel, October 23rd through the 27th. The commission was a little closer to this annual conference last year. We had monthly updates on this, and we had a very successful conference at the Fess Parker Doubletree. And but anyway, the conference registration material is included. Registration closes on October 6th, and registration rates, early bird rates, are in August 31st, again, the end of this month. And the hotel rate is pretty reasonable, $125 for a single. You'll recall that we paid a little more for that at the Fess Parker last year, but we still got a very good rate. And registration for the hotel, again, the cutoff date is September 22nd. So I gave you the flyer for the conference outlining some of the programs that are being presented, and just conclude by saying that if you're interested in attending, then Jacqueline is very willing to make the registration arrangements and hotel reservations, so just let Jacqueline know. And it's a little bit, several ways to get down there, but train has been talked about. It's a little bit long, especially for me. It's about an 8-hour train ride from where I live. But driving or flying or cars and mileage is included for transportation, as well as hotel and registration.
Okay, the early deadline is when?
Registration's paid by August 31st.
Okay.
Get a discounted rate. And then the hotel cutoff is September 22nd.
Okay, commissioners, those that wish to go, please get all of the clerk, and please do it before the early bird deadline passes. Okay.
Mr. Chair, or will we have to make individual room reservations, or is that taken care of? We just notify you whether we want to go or not?
Yeah, Jacqueline will make the reservations.
Okay, that couldn't be any
We do
easier.
that through Cal LAFCO.
Yep.
And the hotel directly.
Anybody? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Receive and file. Commissioner Wolf.
So this is a question for council. You know, there's I don't know if it's FPPC regulations that you can't get reimbursed, you can't have you can't have money spent for transportation on a train. And do you know the regulation I'm talking about? It's like one of those really bad things that if you do, you could be removed from office.
I can check on that. I think, and Mr. Stark, I think, has dealt with this. But
I have amazingly enough dealt with it. It's a provision in the California Constitution that prohibits entities that are regulated by the Public Utilities Commission from giving free transportation passes. And it's not an FPPC regulation.
Okay, I knew it was something.
Yeah, and it's a real trap for the unwary if airlines are giving people free tickets, and it trapped a couple people.
So I just want to make sure that if you get reimbursed from LAFCO for that, that's not part of it.
Yeah, you're going to pay your way, and LAFCO will reimburse you, so it's not, I think, within the restrictions of that.
Well, even if LAFCO reimburses us.
It's improper for the railroad to comp you.
So it's the railroad
yeah,
only.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's just getting it for free, and I think that started when they used to support candidates and take them up and down the state. Yeah. So no, that's just free transportation. Okay, we're done with that item. And any commissioner announcements or requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, Mr. Hood, Executive Officer's comments.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. City of Lompoc is getting ready to file an application for the West Bailey Avenue annexation. It's outside the sphere of influence, and it's in ag land. I met with them actually about a year ago, and said that they might be better off looking at a sphere of influence change rather than processing an application and environmental impact report along with an annexation. But the council voted 4-1 to submit the application. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I may have sent you a link to the newspaper article. Also, we're dealing with the San Antonio groundwater basin as far as a water district, and district supervisor staff has met with us and asked to submit an application, and we met with them a couple of months ago, but now they are in the process of preparing the application for SIGMA requirements. And I think there's only a very small number of landowners that it's a moderate basin. It's not like Coahoma, which was a significant overdraft. This is a moderate overdraft situation, but they're wanting to form their own water district. And again, we're looking at, all the time I talk to potential applicants and for annexations and out-of-agency service agreements. And but those seem to be the two biggest ones that we're looking at now, and we should have an application on both of those, I think, within the next month, 2 months, and I'll put those on the agenda for your information when they come in. And that's it.
Very good. Commissioner, any questions for Mr. Hood? Seeing none, our next meeting will be Thursday, September 7th here in Santa Barbara. Thursday, September 7th, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.